Alright guys, I'm back. I'm doing a tutorial here on getting a character all rigged inside Unity. I just did a short tutorial on trying to get my character all rigged up in Rigify, and I was having some problems. But anyways, the whole point of this lesson is to learn how to code and animate our character in Unity. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload some characters that you can download, and that way you can at least understand how the code works and get it all rigged up, and you'll be following the exact same files that I have. You can also, when you have more time, make your own character, animate it, and do all that sort of stuff. There's tons of Rigify tutorials on Blender, and I am using an older version of Blender, so it probably is might be a bit confusing for some of you guys using 2.8. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and upload those so you can download them, and I'll put them in the chat description here so you can click on it. So just give me a second here. So I will put them on my Journey for the Crown website. So I've got 2 of them. They're not too big. I think they're about like 16 megs for this one, 18 for that. All right, copy to clipboard. So here they are. Here's the first one. And then there's another one here. There you go. So those are the 2 files. They're also going to be on one of my blogs as well. So I will go ahead and just add that real quick here. All right. There you go. So if you need to download them, they're over there on those links. You might have to do a little right-click Save As, and you're good to go. So over to Unity, let's go ahead and import these files into our folder here. So I have them on my desktop. I'm just trying to move it around so I can drag them in. There we go. So now that's going to import both of them. All right, so I've got two new sets of animations, and the reason why I have them set into two is because when you export animation data, like those files are almost 15 megabytes each. If you add them together, it becomes a real pain in the butt when you start working in the animations tabs and you have a whole pile of them. So I just keep them nice and neat and tidy. I kind of put like attacks all in one, and then I kind of have this one I called common, which is just like your common stuff, like your idle, your battle, attack stance, or sorry, your battle stance, idle stance, that sort of thing, right? So when you go through here, it also takes a long time to hit apply if you've got 100 of them in there. So just a crappy thing that I've learned over time, and others realize that, like, let's just put them in separately. And the beauty is the model itself, it doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as everything jives in it, like the animation details find this thing called male large rig, everything works in there perfectly fine. Which I just realized that I need to actually have a third file, which is my actual my guy here, which I think, let's see if he has. Oh yeah, he has his body here. So what you could do is, and this is what I've done with my animation details, is I have this guy has got a separate body and a different file with like clothing and all that stuff. So you could utilize like a main exported FBX file without any animation details on it, but all the clothing and all those little bits and pieces, and then save your animation details on an empty version like this, and it'll still animate all the clothing on the other file. So that's what I've done, just because it becomes a real big pain in the butt. So just keep that in mind. So here's our character. I can add some materials to him here. He's probably just got a basic one right now, transparent. So let's create a new material. I'm just gonna create a basic one. Just call it skin or large male large skin. And I'll just pick a color. Let's kind of get a skin color here. Probably more like this. There we go. Let me stick it on. I believe he also has eyes in here somewhere, which could be hard to target. So these are all the bones that I was speaking about, where you have you can add different things to the bones. So we can add a sword in there and do our attack sequence. I wonder if the eyes didn't get exported with this, because it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now that thing's rigged in, let's go ahead and let's add our player scripts to it. So we have to move all of this stuff over from our previous video. So we had the mouse look, we had the character movement, character collider, all that crap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the location of this and just paste it over. So they're in like around the same spot. It looks like I have to move my guy down a bit. Okay. And then I will go over here, copy capsule collider. Paste it in. Looks like I'll need to adjust that. So I believe 1 will do. There we go. Character controller, we can copy that, move it over. Paste is new. Set the y-axis here to 1 as well. These ones you can actually just drag over, which is kind of nice. All right, and that all looks good. We have to move the camera over as well. So there we go. I'm going to put it at the top. I should just put it at the bottom. What else? You don't need those arms because those are just kind of like added there for fun. We need to change the tag to player. Okay. And I think that's it. So we can hide this for now. Just make sure everything looks good. So he's got a capsule. He's got all that stuff. Let's hit play and see if our character is attached to it properly and we have no errors. So it looks good. He moves forward, doesn't do any animations. Our mouse look looks like it's not working. It's probably because of this. So we'll have to figure out why our mouse look isn't working. All right, why is our mouse look not working? Let's have a look at that script. That's why. It's still attached to the old one. Stupid mistake by me, but here we go. So I linked the new player transform, which is the new one. We were actually spinning around this thing, which wasn't even moving, and it was disabled. So this should work, and our mouse look should be set up. And it is. Awesome. Okay, so now our new character's all rigged. Hey Zach, how you doing, bud? I'm just doing a little tutorial, continuing off with our FPS game. Just got a character all rigged up. I had some problems in my earlier video where I actually couldn't get the damn rig to rig up, and it's taking way too much time. So I ended up just downloading one from a game that I'm working on. So. Oh yeah, it's always good times when you waste on something trivial like that. At least you figured it out, man. So now I've got that all set up. Let's look at the animations tab, and we're gonna go over to our imported section here. And I have to, these ones all look good, but this one here, they have to be set to loop, because battle and running, they're basically just going to keep going and going and going. So I'm going to set all of these to loop. All right. Don't need this one. Don't need that. You can always, if you erase them, you can always retrieve them back in here. I don't need that one either. There's a walking stance. Make sure that they all work. I've got a running one. Perfect. All right, and then just hit apply. Oh, it's good you figured it out, man. Okay, so that is in there. The next thing we need to do is actually make an animator controller. So right click anywhere in your assets folder here and just go create animator controller. All right. We'll call this one male large animations. Okay. Now we're going to double click on that and it'll open up this new window called Animator. And we're going to drag in both of our imported FPX files, and you get a whole bunch of different animations here, and they'll be nicely named so we know what they are, and just kind of line them up like this so you can kind of work with it. And then here's our common ones. Okay. Now I'm just going to set up an idle. I could set up these three. Move everything around a bit. You can scroll in and out with the mouse wheel. Run. And these ones I don't want to use right now, so I'm just kind of like tuck them away down here. Same thing with these. Don't really need them for now. I just want the main attack. So we'll do this. I have to check which one looks better first. Male attack 1. Let's see. It looks kind of weird, that one. Let's try this. I like that one. We'll use attack 1. So what I want to do is I want to set the entry. So right click, set state machine default state to our idle stance. Now I'd erase that one and I can just tuck this down here with the ones I don't use. I'm going to add in a few different variables here. So over in our parameters section, if you have layers selected, go over to parameters. There's this little plus symbol. We're going to add in 3 bools and 1 trigger. So let's add in our first bool. We'll call it idle. And then our next bool will be called run. And then our next one will be called battle. Looks like I may have slipped and added in an int. So I'm just going to fix that, do idle. All right. So now we got 3 bools. Let's add in our trigger. Now the difference between these is bools are basically true or false, and they stay on. So if you set it to true, it'll just keep staying true until you change it. A trigger is kind of an interesting way of, it's still kind of like a bool, but it basically just allows you to fire something, and you could still have these running, and it goes from one transition to another. And so we're basically going to use this for our attack, and we can just click on it once and it turns itself back off, and then it'll go back into that loop we're going to create over here for our different stances. So with these 3, let's try and make a nice little like triangle. We're going to link them all up. So I'm going to do make transition to battle, and then make transition back to idle. And we're going to do the same thing to each one of these so that there's like an internal loop as long as something in here is picked. Okay. So in order for these things to work properly, if you click on the actual little arrows here, you'll get some choices in this conditions area. Click on the plus symbol, and we have to make sure that we are doing the proper condition here. So for instance, I'm going from battle to idle. So what we want is that condition. So if we set this to idle, So if, for instance, right now, if I'm over here animating this, it would technically look like this. What I'm going to do in code is essentially swap this to idle, and then it's going to move down that little path over into this one. So that's the general idea of these little arrows. So what we want to do is just to set the appropriate values for every one. And if you make a mistake in here, it'll definitely show up. You'll notice it right away. So just be a little careful, because you can definitely. It's hard. There's a lot of little tiny things in here that you could screw up, but you'll know when it's working when we go through the stances if they're not. And beauty thing about it is animated in here, so you can see where things are moving around. But you have to have these bools set up properly, otherwise it's going to do some really crazy stuff. So this one needs to be set from run to idle, so let's set that to idle. This one needs to go from idle to run, so let's set that to run. Run to battle. There we go, and this one's battle to run. Perfect. So I'm just going to click on all of them and make sure I have something in there at least. There we go. So what's going to happen here is the game's going to start, it's going to enter, and it's going to go straight to idle, which is perfect because our character will just be standing there. And then depending on our actions, it'll start off in here, and depending on what we command it to do, it'll turn this off and possibly go to run, or maybe we start combat, it'll go to battle. And depending on our actions we code in, we can schedule an animation for an attack sequence. So in order to get that to work, there's a couple of different ways you could do it. You could have like transitions from each one of these doing this, and we just set them in the condition here to attack. And now you don't get that option for true or false. Basically triggers, you just fire the trigger and then it does it. That's one way you can do it, or you can actually go to any state and just right click from here. So this will have the exact same effect as me doing this on all three of these. I don't need to do that. And it keeps your project clean. Imagine having to link a transition from every one of your animations to these. It becomes really annoying, and you have all these lines everywhere, and one little mess up can be actually hard to find because there's just so many of them. So let's do it that way. I end up learning the hard way. I used to have everything linked up that way, and then I realized you can just do it this nice and easy way here with the any state. So that's how I will do that. What we do need to do though is have to actually do well, let's see how this works first. Let's see if this actually gives us the functionality we want. So in order to test this, we can actually just toggle these statuses on our character to see how it looks without even actually coding. So we'll go hit the play button, but I have to make sure I add this controller to my animator up here. So from the project folder, just drag it over, and then everything should be linked up. Now I'm going to set it to idle by default, and then I'll hit play. I just started streaming about I don't know, 45 minutes ago. But yeah, I just kind of doing a tutorial, so I'm streaming it over to YouTube as well. So I'm trying to fire this thing out in a nice clean way, otherwise I gotta chop it up. So looks like my animation, my idle pose is working just fine. So you can kind of see him moving around. I'm gonna turn my mouse look off for a second here so I can actually move my mouse around. Let's go to the animator, and let's just toggle it over to run and see if he's running. There you go. Now, I noticed a small delay there, and considering that I just hopped from window to window, watch this. So if I click over to idle, you can see that it's kind of slow. I want it to be super fast, right? So right now it should be at run already, but it's not. So that sort of thing we have to deal with in our settings here for each one of our transitions. So let's have, I think it is, there we go. See how it moved much quicker now? What this is doing is basically saying, I'm going to wait. Has an exit time, it has to wait. So if we untick that, now we head over to this transition duration area. So you have like a fixed duration. And let's just see how it reacts if I go. See how it moved instantly? That's what we want. If I put that back on, it's going to wait until it's finished at the end here. We don't want that. Okay, so just untick that for all of these. And we should get the right effect we want. Now, in my game, I ended up taking and modifying the duration of the transition because that's still a quarter of a second. So that's basically a quarter of a second from here to here, no matter where you are in that stance. Sometimes you might want to even reduce that depending on what it is. Like for instance, my attack sequence, I'm probably going to like drop that down to like 0.05 because I want that attack to be reactive. I want the second I click that button, I want him to swing his sword. I don't want to wait a quarter of a second. That'd just be super annoying. And it feels like your game's lagging, so just keep that in mind. But for these transitions, 0.25 is probably fine. I'm just going to check that I have them all done properly. There we go. So I'm going to move my animator over here. And I'm just going to hit the attack sequence and see what happens. There we go. Now I noticed he didn't go back to his default loop. So there's a couple ways I can handle that. I could actually go, oops, it's a bit big. I could run a transition, an empty transition, right back to the battle stance, because technically if I attack, I'm probably going to end up over here, right? And let's see what happens. Let's see how that reacts. So I'm going to hit the attack trigger and see if I end up going into the proper pose. Perfect. So if you look at what happens, I most likely won't be attacking in an idle state, but even if I am in an idle state, it'll still find itself back over there because it hits these loops again. So I'm going to hit attack. So I'll go down here from any state using the attack trigger. Does my attack, heads over to battle because it's most likely the stance I'll be in at that point. And if I'm not, it'll find the proper loop. Let's try it and see what happens if I hit run. So any state, I attack, boom, I'm into run again. So that is one easy way of doing that. So depending on what your animation typically runs in, I would link it to that one first. Most likely in this scenario when I'm attacking, I'm going to be in here. And if I hit attack, I'm just going to end up right back in there when I'm done. Okay. So now we've got that all rigged up. Let's actually make it so my character, when he's running, it shows the running animation, and when he's stopped, he does the an idle animation. Okay. So I did that all in play mode. It actually retains it, I believe, which is quite handy about the animator. There's some things that you can actually do in play mode, like you can actually sculpt the terrain if you wanted to, and it actually retains it, but everything else seems to not stick. But I've always found when I'm animating, you can do it in the play mode and mess around with all the transitions and it keeps. So be aware if you are messing around with it, it's not going to reset it on you when you go to close it. So he's all done. Let's go into character movement. Now, how could we do this? We're gonna have to create some bools that are part of our character movement. We'll call, let's do a public bool run, and let's do another one, public bool idle, public bool battle. Pretty simple stuff. So we're going to store our stances on our character movement script as simple bools, and then we'll just pass those along into our animation data. Which I'll bring that back into here. Pretty simple stuff. For this one here, we're actually just going to, I'll link that up to like a button on our keyboard, like maybe like like the E key or something like that. We'll figure something out and basically have him fire a trigger through a simple button push. Nothing too complicated, but we can build onto that. We can even maybe do it through a button push on our like kind of like a taskbar or an action bar. We can push a button and it can do it. So that's another option we can do. All right. So let me just pull something up here. All right. So we're going to use the fixed update sequence here. So we'll leave this one all by itself, okay? But I want to go and use the fixed update. Actually, sorry, I shouldn't be using the fixed update for this. Unless I was using other things like, say I was using like a bullet or something like that, it would probably be best in the fixed update. But for this, we won't use that. So what we can do is we can do some if statements here. We'll do, well, first to show you how I actually link into our animator, we actually have to find the animator details. So let's go to public animator. I don't know why, but I always call them the animator anim. That's just something I've always done. So this is going to link to our character's animator controller here, and then it'll allow us to pipe in to this information over there. Okay, so we're going to declare that as one of our variables here, and just make sure you set it to public so we can access it. Let's set anim dot set bool. And we'll just set it by name. So let's set it to run and just see if that takes. Why is that showing up funny? Oh, because that. So what we do here is we grab the animator. We're going to set that variable, which is one of these, this one here, okay? And we're setting the bool. The first one's by string, so we're actually looking for the name run, which is what's spelled here. So if you have like run1, you'd have to put run1 in there, okay? And then right now it's set to false, so we're gonna have to set that to true. Now, what's gonna happen is I've got this ticked off as idle right now, so it's actually going to freak out and start like that, and it'll go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm just going to untick them all, okay? And hit save. All right, and then should have I don't know if I compiled that, but okay, so everything's compiled. I'm going to drag this animator here inside. You can also just drag file over. And now you have it all linked up in the animator thing here. We should be able to hit play and see what happens. Look, he's instantly set up to run. If you notice over in here, it's set to true. So that worked. So now what we have to do is just basically divvy these things up with some if statements. Now before we do that, we should get a series of these things set up so we can just kind of copy and paste. So what we'll do is we'll have it's going to look kind of like this every time I make a different stance change. So this could fix all of our problems at runtime, no matter what I have clicked. Okay, so if I just hit compile on this and I go over here and I just pick a bunch of random ones, it's going to fix it right at boot time. Okay, so it'll undo these ones and put the run back on for us. See? Oh. I don't know what I did, but my Unity kind of crashed here. There we go. So see how it fixed the ones that I had ticked off? Even if I tried to, I tried to click them, it's not going to let me screw it up because the code's doing all the work right now. I can't even undo anything here. I could do an attack and that'll still fire properly, but so now the update sequence is pretty much doing all the work here for us. And we'll just divvy this up into a couple different if statements. So if we did if this one will be if run equals true, we can run this chunk. Else if idle equals true, we can copy this and we'll just switch these around so that idle is true. But I think I'll probably do this. Change that to battle rather. And false. And then I'll just close it off with else. Idle is that way we always kind of like default back to idle. So this is a pretty simple way of doing it. Now we can control through our character by just toggling one of these and it'll do all the work for us. Okay. So let's see how that reacts. Let's untick all those and go back to our scene. And now we can actually just click these little variables here and it'll go right all the way over into our animator and push those values into here. Okay. So I'm already on idle. Go to run. So that looks good. Got battle. Run. Now what happens if I click both? So far it looks good. What about all three? What about? So it's basically treating, because of the order of our if statement, our running is like taking precedence over our battle, and our battle is taking precedence over our running or our idle stance, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted the idle stance to be at the bottom, and that way this should work. We could make it so that if one of them is picked, we don't have any, like it'll undo it for us, but this is working pretty good for now. And we'll make sure that these variables get cleaned up when we're actually pushing the forward button, right? So if we're pushing the forward button, I'm going to make it that idle and battle turn off, so we don't have to do any of that other work too. So, hey Action, how you doing, buddy? Just doing a little tutorial here on getting our characters all rigged up with some animations and coding it together. It's some beginner stuff, but I definitely think you'll like it. So now that we've got the bool set up so that our character knows to run those poses and animations, we can tie that into our actual controls. So where are our controls here? So this is our movement right here. I gotta figure out how can we use this to make it work. Oh yeah, it's uploaded to YouTube. Sorry about the starting. It's a little bit I think it was a slow start at the starting, but it's starting to move along now. So this one doesn't really, these movement controls are a bit tricky to work with because it's not really grabbing our keys properly. Yeah, this is probably going to not work. Because we're not actually using key pushes, we're actually just using a direction thing here. Through here. Right. So we're going to have to fix this up. Because right now, there's no way to really to know where we're going. It's just our direction is based on the axis. And there's really there's no way of knowing if we're moving or not. It's just running. It's always running, right? But if we used our get key function, we can actually read if I push forward or left, and we can slip in a little boolean that will then trigger all this stuff to run. So there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. We did have a really good movement script that I think we could utilize and tap into it. It's a bit more complicated, but it was that one that I looked at a while ago. I found it online, and it had a better mouse look. It had a whole bunch of better stuff, but I did not foresee this problem, and I don't want to make it too complicated because that other script was quite detailed. How about we just change? No, I'm not doing velocity crap, man. No, that thing was a mess. It doesn't work well, and then I have to change all the rigs around. Right now we're using the character controller, which is like it's an easier version to work with. Well, I know how to make it work. We tried it before, and it was just it's different. It has a different feel to it. It didn't work well. Velocity, would be more for like a bowling game or something like that, you know. And this is very lightweight. If we do a velocity route, it's very heavy. You're working with physics now. This is using like a lightweight version, right? Yeah. Well, character controller also walks into walls too, so that's why we use character controller. Like it theoretically works, but I prefer this route here. Let me see about this character. I have no idea where I put that script. Axon, do you know where? Did I send that script to you in Discord? Fuck, I can't find it. Movement. Let me see here. Oh, I think I found it. Here it is. I found it. So this one uses... It's super freaking complicated though. So a lot of this is just gonna blow your mind. If you're new to it. It is using key codes, so that's perfect. We can dial in to all that stuff here. All right, so I'm going to link this into chat to the actual file, because it's a really good script, and I tested it out earlier and it was very easy and lightweight to use. So let's copy this, and I'm going to create a new script, and we'll call it, we'll attach it to our character, call it combined mouse look and camera move. Okay, all capitals. Just gonna close that, double click, and I'm going to dump in that code, and I'm going to hit compile. Just want to make sure I link up everything here so it works. I will disable these two. We basically replacing them with the better one. All right. Now this has got a really nice editor. You can actually change all the forward and left and back and right key right in here, so it's pretty darn cool. I'm just going to attach my character's body here, which I believe is that. It may be this. Let's hit play and see what happens. So it is working, but I have to set up some gravity, obviously. Ooh. The mouse look works. Let's see what happens if I change the body there. I can. I just think I had it set to the wrong one. So the mouse look works great, but I have to lock the y-axis. Bet you I have to use a rigid body for this. Let's do rigid body and lock it on the Y. It's more like a spaceship game now. Yeah, that's not working. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I think I know what I'm doing wrong. This might be on the wrong piece here. Let's set it up on my camera. I think I did something wrong here. So it's got the mouse look going right. But it's not moving my character now. I'm going to read what this guy's written in the code. Assign parent object controlling motion. Oh, that's probably where I screwed up. I should go back to my character controller. Drag that up. Next thing. It will rotate this object instead of the camera it is. All right. I feel like this is supposed to be outside. It says on the post to attach it to the camera. I don't feel like that is working. Okay, let's just try this again. Oh, there we go. There we go. Body starts floating in the air and shit. How the hell are you going through the ground with a collider on? Character controller. Well, maybe this thing isn't very good after all. I might have to change it. Because that's not going to do any good. But I feel like it's moving the camera. Oh, the camera's good. It's moving the camera. Maybe it's... No, it's definitely not that. Weird, man. I thought this thing was working pretty good when I tested it out the other day. I'm probably missing something. Like, the guy's code wasn't exactly crystal clear. It says attach this script to the main camera. I don't know why you would want to attach it to the main camera. That's just weird. Right. Well, I want to have mouse look and I want to have the movement. If you have that, then I'll take it. Mouse look settings. I don't want to use a rigid body one that uses velocity because it's just a tank. I'd rather use this stuff. Something like this, like either character move. Yeah, I never liked rigid body because even if you want to do like pathing, you can't dial into it with rigid body. It just like you got like two systems freaking out at each other, right? All right, buddy, take her easy. So interpolate. All right, so it specifically says add it to the main camera, so let's just try it. And let's see what's broken on it. I think the mouse look was fine. How else could I have that set up? Oh, maybe I need to actually add it in here like that. How about that? Nope. That doesn't make sense. This isn't using knob mesh, no. This is just, what is it using? It's just using like transform position and then applying it. If there's a character's body that acts as a parent to the camera, go into here. So yeah, it's just doing a transform translate, define its location. Maybe I'm just missing some settings here. Nope. So I like the way the mouse look works. I wonder if it's because I have... Let's just reset this and bring it up a bit. Oh, so it's not doing anything. Well, I don't know, man. Suppose we can just go back to our other script and make it work with movement script. Because that script's not going to help. I know, but I was just trying to get into other things, right? I didn't have this planned in any way to sit here and piss around on game movements. I didn't have anything planned for this, right? I had everything else planned for something else. I didn't realize that I was going to be hindered by our game movements. Because there's no way for me to dial into those animations without completely doing something fresh here. I thought this, when I fired this thing up a while ago, it worked great. Like that looks pretty good, but my fucking guy's not moving. All right, let's trash that thing. Go into here and I'm gonna move this over and use it as some help here. We can transfer these over to keys. So I'm gonna grab this part here. And I'm gonna grab in their key codes because that will be handy. So I'm gonna use their key code things. And that way I can pump them into that. Speed. That should work. It won't have any smoothing, I don't believe, but I believe that would work. Oh. I think I have to take some stuff off here. So that kind of worked, right? So I replaced those movements with this one. Same result. And now I'm able to turn and do all that cool stuff. I don't see my character. I'm not able to move my mouse upwards though. Which isn't like all that bad. That's still pretty good. But now I can pipe in. It's actually a pretty good compromise. Let's just adjust our camera a bit here. I want to be able to see myself. I don't know, I always preferred seeing myself in games. How do I make it move over there? I saw one game it was like this. You'd be shooting sideways. It was kind of cool. Alright, let's set up that camera so I can see my character. So I'm going to go up. Like that. I think it was 20. Maybe 10. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah. So we are good. The mouse sensitivity really needs to go up though. Like, I'm having to stretch my thing all the way to my third monitor here. So let's see if we can do that in here. Rotation speed, maybe do 5. Oh yeah, that's way better. All right. So let's stick with that for now. I will at some point upgrade the mouse movement so I can stare up in the sky, I guess. For now, this is pretty cool. Now let's pump into our animation details. I'm going to show you guys this script real quick so you can update the current one I have. So I added in public key code, forward key, left key, back key, and right key, and you just basically type in key code and then the uppercase letter you want it to be. So that shows up in the editor, and it's nice and clean, and you can see it here. So now you can change it to whatever you want. Okay. And then at the bottom, all I did was comment out our old moving direction and inputted this. So you can put that up here. So now instead of using this, we're using key pushes to basically move our character. All right. Now what we could do is inside here, and it's pretty simple, we can set our 3 bools. So we can grab the run, the idle, and the battle and just set them appropriately. So we'll do run equals true, battle equals false, idle equals false. Now I can actually copy all 3 of these and just dump them in each one of these keys. Okay. All right. Now what we will have to do though is we have to know when we haven't pushed a key. How are we going to check that? Because it's just going to remain. What we could do. An interesting problem. Because we'll be updating. Now we have to figure out when the key push is done. And I can't put an else statement here because it'll always fire if I don't push it. And we could be pushing the right key, and then these else statements, if I had one, will be firing. I need a reference bool is right. How about we add one more bool, and we'll just call it public bool. What the hell am I gonna call it? We'll call this one actions. Wait. So if I had a bool that it could do the key was hit, but if I had an action in here, this is a very simple yet interesting problem. Well, let's just call this one stance. Okay. And how about, no, wait, do running on. We do that. Damn it. How do I do it before? Right, but even with the reference bool, how is that even possible with a reference bool? I could essentially use these as reference bools, So I enter in here, my run is equal to true. I think we might have to move it into another function. I could also do a simple distance check. I think that's what I did before. If my location hadn't updated, it's a simple little like you can just check your transform location. If it equals the same, then we know we're just sitting there doing nothing, right? That's probably a really simple hack at it. Let's try that. If transform dot location, and we can use that as a reference location. So, yeah, that'll do. How about, so instead of this being a bool, we're gonna do public transform. We'll just do previous location. Okay. I just want to see if this will work. Transform location equals position dot location. transform dot position. And then we do these equals so what I'm doing here, I don't know what I messed up. Else. So I'm going to store my previous location in one of these equals transform dot position. Okay. Oh wait. That's why. Vector 3. So change that to vector 3. And change that to just that. So it's going to just compare the position of my current position to a vector 3 location, see if it matches. So change that from transform to previous location. We will set this location inside each one of our key presses. So every time you push it and this update runs, it's going to store that information. And we might have to put this. Technically that is going to update first in the loop. I think that's gonna work. And then what happened here? Missing a bracket or something? Close. Oh. There we go. Thank you. All right, let's see. I think that's how I kind of did it with my game, where well, mine was a little different. It was like a click to move thing, and I have nav mesh systems set up where I know my previous location, but essentially I think that's the same crap as this is. You know, you're just logging information, and then comparing it. This would probably work. Let's give her a go. Just gonna hit compile again. So it's kind of like your loop idea, or your reference loop. Oh yeah, look at that. Now I'm running backwards, sideways. I think it works pretty good. All right, that works. I'm happy with it. It's not like I'm using a ton of performance. All I'm doing is storing a vector. It's not a horrible way of doing it, and it's reading the information properly. The only problem I suppose I could have is if I'm in a battle stance, right? and like say I'm in combat and I move forward, well, it's going to throw me back into idle, right? So that's the only problem I see with this. So what I could do is I could, in my game master, fix that with some sort of like, are you in combat thing? And I just go like, you know, like game master script dot in combat, and then I can just make a small decision there inside this loop. So I think that works for now. So let's just fix that. So what we changed here was I added in the key codes, and then I commented out this. I added in 4 new key presses. I added in this new previous location vector3 variable here and set it to public. This is going to keep track of where our character currently is every time we make any sort of movement. It's just basically going to keep going and going and going and storing that. That information is being stored from our key presses. So my mistake, it's only being stored every time we push a key, right? So that information is being piped in from our transformed opposition, which is our location of right here. So this value here, the 3 values, that's your vector 3. It's being piped in for every key press. And then ensure that you have this before your key presses, because our update loop does, it is like a sequential thing. So I want to make sure that if we aren't pushing it, this thing gets fired, right? Because essentially, if I had this after here, our previous location and our transfer position are going to be the same, right? But if it's before here, it could just trigger in once and check, right? So that's just a little order that will make this work. If I put this behind, it's always going to run and be idle, because this value is being set right here to our position, and then we're just simply comparing them again. So it's like redundant, and it would cause us to have a problem. So at the top it goes. So that part we added, basically it's going to compare those values and then set our idle bool to true. And then now we have ourselves cool looking running pose. Hey Zach, right now it's just a tutorial series for an FPS design I'm working on. So yeah, it's like we're 2 videos in right now, and I'm kind of just piecing things together. We just finished making a like a simple Dark Souls kind of like idea here, where I'm going to put like a sword on the guy and make an attack sequence. I've got the running set up with a mouse look. We've had small iterations, a couple little hiccups along the way, but this is where we are right now. I've got, in our last video, we discussed interactable objects. So you can like click on that box, and then you'll notice it says Apple at the top. If I click on this yellow one, should say something different. Banana. My mouse looks kind of freaking me out right now. I would love to work on next is to make the mouse look work only by pushing the left key. I think that's what I want to do, because this is just driving me nuts. So let's do that. I've always liked games where you can hold the key down and the mouse look works, and then you let go and then it doesn't, right? But this, like, you can't even push a button, right? Your mouse is freaking out. So let's see if we can do that. Because then I have a nice working little system that I'm used to. And I think it's a common setup, right? Right mouse click, and then you can do a mouse look. So for that, we'll probably have to go into our mouse look. Now, this is utilizing the same kind of thing here, but I still believe we could encapsulate this in an if statement. If mouse input, is it? Input, I can't remember what the mouse ones are. Input dot get mouse button, that's what it is. And I can't remember what right click is. Let's try, I think 0 is left and 1 is the one we need. Okay. And then I'm just going to encapsulate this whole thing. I might be wrong on the index, I can't remember. There's basically 3 indexes you can use, your 0, 1, and 2. I think 2 is your middle mouse. Like the little scroll wheel, if you push it down, some mouses have that feature. Let's see if that works. So right now, I can't do any mouse looking, but if I hold it, now it works. That's exactly what I want. That's a easy fix. That's how they're all supposed to be, right? Nice and easy. I'm going to fix that up to 5. I think that was probably the best mouse speed. Maybe let's try 8. So I can move forward. Oh yeah. Great. It's kind of like a game I used to play. Dark Age of Camelot. Same controls. I kind of like the fact that I can't stare at the sky, because like, you ever done like a mouse look and you went up straight in the sky and it spun you around in circles and now you're like all fucking drunk and someone's pounding on you? This is kind of nice that it keeps you lined up, right? And it makes steering super easy. Look at me, man. I'm like going down moguls here. Anyways, so that is pretty cool. Let's work on the attack sequence. So I would like to, I think it would probably make more sense to have the attack sequence in here, but it would probably make sense to have it on its own script too. So why don't we make a new script and we'll call it, I feel like it would be cool if I called it character actions. Character actions. I spelled that right? Yeah. Don't know why it keeps doing that. It opens it up, but it doesn't open up the file. Character actions, and this shouldn't be too complicated. We're basically just piping into our animation details. I think it would be good if we actually attached our character movement to our character actions. So I'm going to attach a public variable called character movements. And this will allow me to access everything inside here. And I want to access this animation variable. And it would be nice to have access to all this other stuff in the event we need to do things down the road in our character actions. So we'll call this character movement script. And I don't know, it's just maybe a thing I like to do, but I always put script on the end of things that are grabbing classes. That's just something I do. I don't know if you guys have your own little way of doing things, but to me, when I read it, I'm like, oh, okay, that's part of a huge class full of cool stuff. So that's what I do. We could do input dot get e. And you know what? I might do the same thing they did before with the key codes, because that was pretty neat. So what we're going to do is we'll set another key code here, public key code main, or well, let's just make it simple for now, attack key. Okay. Equals key code, and I'm going to make it capital E, because it's probably going to be the easiest to use. I'm just going to slip that in there. Oops. Jeez, I'm way ahead of myself here. So we've got our attack button in there. It knows when we pushed it. Now we're going to grab our character movement script and then grab its animator controller, which is this one here. And we're going to do the exact same thing we did with our bools here. I'm just going to grab. It looks a little different. I'll show you what I mean. So what we'll be doing here is we're doing a set trigger instead, though. Okay. So you look at the difference between the other one. The other one was a bool. This one's a set trigger, and we can do it by, I believe it's by string name is how I always do it. And I have to go back and see, what did I call it? Attack. I'll just copy and paste it. Stuff that in there. And basically that will fire an attack. We should be able to see the animation happen too. Oh. So before we can get this going, we have to drag this into here, or you can drag the whole game object and plop it in. And then let's hit play and see what happens if I hit the E key. Alright, so I do see a problem. It's firing a whole crap load of them, right? So if I hold it down, he just glitches out. So we might have to do some sort of I wonder if there's something in here we can fix to stop it from doing that. Maybe that's, let me just see what happens if I do it now. It's still kind of freaking out. Oh, I think that is the problem. Yeah. All right. So this thing here, we could opt to do some sort of like trigger check in here, but this is like a new thing that I think it came out in like, it's not like super new, but I remember when I was working on older state transition stuff, I don't remember seeing this in here, and then all of a sudden it came out and it made my life so much better. But this one, basically, it won't let us go back into here if we're already in there. And if we tick it off, it allows us to go back in there, even if we're already in there. So by ticking this off, we should be able to get the desired result we want. See? So I'm actually pushing the key down now. He's like repeatedly firing it, but at least he's finishing his animation. Whereas if I do that, he'll just like keep going, right? Now I can actually set this duration back to a quicker response, right? That's perfect. Should give it a little bit of a delay. There we go. So now it's very responsive. You see the full animation, and you're not transitioning into it. Now, say I have 2 attacks and I was to mash them at the same time, we'll probably have a similar problem to that, and then maybe we'll have to do some code for that. But that's going to be more like controlling your transitions between, and we can still, there's other ways to fix that. All right, so that looks pretty cool. We should. What else could we do here? We'll probably want to pipe into some sort of like target that we hit. Are you talking to me about the titties? Yeah. I don't have cleavage and I don't have the pretty face. It's funny, man. I was watching this one streamer, and she's so hot, and she's got like thousands of people looking at her, and she's talking about absolutely fuck all. She's just sitting there and like talking about nothing interesting whatsoever. But she's got like a following, like a Hollywood celebrity. I think I'm gonna call it quits with this one. I don't want to run out of stuff to do, and I got to think of what we can do next. I think I would like to start building into like an enemy, and maybe we can have a health bar and start, using this attack function here to actually deal some damage to something. So I'm gonna stop here, and we'll continue off probably, I don't know, next week, unless a lot of people want me to keep going. But yeah, I'm gonna try and do one of these every week. Maybe a little longer, maybe a couple every week. I don't know. We'll see. But if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you come watch me over on Twitch, and make sure you follow. And yeah, I hope to see you in my next video. I'm going to stop this one here and probably go grab a bite to eat, and I'll be back in about, I don't know, 20 minutes with design of my other game that I've been working on. And if you want to come and watch that, that'd be pretty cool. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you shortly. See you, Zach.